taking the time to attend this roundtable. I'd like to thank Hwee for once again, and Mr. Wong, Toon, Suan, and everyone else for making their attendance. Before we begin in addressing the issues and challenges facing the city gas sector in Singapore as well as Asia, I'd like to get Mr. Hwee to give us a city gas overview.
Okay. Thanks, Bryan. I thought because the first topic is on city gas in Singapore, so I will just take all of you through briefly. How is it? What's the framework like in Singapore? It's a bit different from quite a number of countries, and I guess the guy who is actually very familiar with this is actually Toon Suan himself. He started with the gas market. He saw the whole change, all the changes all these years. What I provided is just a snapshot of where city gas fit into the whole gas market in Singapore. So after that, we'll go into the topics. If you may allow me, I'll just take you through a couple of minutes. So, where city gas are, we are still making gas, and the plant is in Senoko. We used to make town gas from naphtha, but since 06-07, we've gone 100%. So we still reform natural gas instead of direct reticulation. Robert asked about conversion, which I said maybe later on if we have time, we'll talk about it. So basically, city gas buy gas from GSPL, which is an entity 100% owned by Temasek, and GSPL buy gas from Sumatra. So in Singapore, there are 4 pipelines coming into gas pipeline, 2 in the north, 2 in down south. Sembcorp is one, moving from Natuna offshore. Sumatra is onshore, and Keppel has one from north, and Senoko has one coming from north from Petronas. So 2. So the left-hand side, where we buy gas, and the gas is transported by power gas to our plant up north in Senoko, and there we make gas. We have 8 units of gas facility. 3 on MP and 5 on LP. So that's what we make. After making town gas, we convert methane to the more hydrogen-rich town gas system on a low pressure system, and it leaves our plant, which is transported by power gas again. So power gas is an entity part of SP group. Now it's called SPPG, right? Yeah, Singapore Power Grid and Gas. Yeah. So that is part of Singapore Power, and once it reaches the customer, city gas is responsible for the retail side. So where city gas fit in that sense, the company where city gas is actually production of gas and retailing of gas. Today, on the mainland, outside of Jurong, Tuas, is still on the low pressure network, town gas network. So city gas has about 630,000 customers. 14,000 actually from the commercial industrial, and the remaining actually all residential, which includes the HDB, home dwellers, landed property, private condominium. And then from commercial is basically from cradle to grave, hospital until crematorium. So even the crematorium is our customer. So in the industrial side, quite a fair bit of this has been replaced by natural gas. So in the natural gas market, there are quite a number of players. The big one is of course Samgas, and then second would be GSPL, city gas, gas supply, and then city gas itself. And to a certain degree, you have 2 more, Keppel as well as Senoko. Senoko sell a bit of gas to some of the industrial players. Keppel a lot more to their own captive market. Yeah. So natural gas market, there are about 5 players. In terms of town gas, because of the network, free access, but still 1 producer and 1 retailer. Pending decision from government, conversion may go ahead. Yeah. So in 2004, there was a study, and the recommendation, because the plant was just relocated to Senoko about less than 10 years. So the decision was to wait and till maybe closer to fully depreciated, then we would consider that. So the decision is still with government, with EMA. Of course, there's discussion, but don't know when would that be. So that's the snapshot of where city gas fit into the Singapore framework. And city gas portion of the whole gas usage is actually very small. In terms of direct gas sales, including natural gas, it's only about 3% out of the total gas being brought in. Bulk of it is still going to the Genco. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's an overview of where we are. Quite different maybe from Hong Kong, China Gas, or even Korea and Japan, where they probably own the whole chain, but here we don't.
Yeah, I just want to throw a question to everyone in attendance. What do you think some of the challenges Singapore city gas market is currently facing at the moment? Anyone willing to give their views on that?
Suan. You have seen the changes. I just joined the gas market for about 6 years only. Yeah.
Thanks, Yong. I think you have just went through very quickly the city gas post-market restructuring. I mean, before that, the gas business is an integrated business, right? I mean, from transport, import, retail, they're all in one under power gas. Then we split into city gas, GSPL, same parent anyway in Singapore, you find them. I think I always like to highlight that city gas is probably one of the very earliest utility in Singapore, 1861. I think that is something we say we should be proud of. Of course, then it must be started by British, and it's for lighting, street lighting. There are like many. I think to put the record right, I believe 1861, Singapore, 62, Hong Kong, 63, Shanghai.
Yes.
That we used to say we are brother. I always joke, maybe we had started by the same group of gas engineer. Okay, that's bad. Now, moving forward, of course, the market is structured in a way retail is away from transportation and from import, i.e., this very much actually follow the British market structure. The competitive market and the monopoly market are separated. I think this is important when we talk about the challenges subsequently to city gas. Yes, Singapore have two types of gas in the pipe, manufactured gas and natural gas. All right. City gas market may be small. I think Yong is very humble. It's at 3% because you look at the total gas volume input. But if you discount away the 85% of the gas into the generation, I think city gas as a whole, meaning those pipe gas, they are not small. They're not small. Okay, that's to personally I like to put it in the right perspective, because in any country, if you want to compare the gas going to generation, they are there, and retail will be here, right? So if you look at non-generation, I believe city gas, in terms of volume, heat volume or energy, you're quite. I don't know the figures. In the old days, we used to talk about almost half. Now with the natural gas also reticulated, easily you probably a third. So you'll not be 3. I think it with a 1-0. That's my view. Now, how do we see city gas go from, and perhaps I should say city gas, I think we will define gas in the pipe because city gas. Probably that is generic, because I know there's a lot of argument. Sometimes if you go to like some places in China, they may have break up a pipe system, but it's LPG air. They also want to call that the city gas. Yes. I think the Japanese will not agree to the terms. So I think if you want to have a common terminology, then we say, for today's discussion, we say gas in the pipe, we call it city gas. Regardless what is the type of fuel, whether it's a manufactured gas or whether it is natural gas, regardless the end customer, whether it is domestic, industrial, or commercial, this system we call city gas. Challenges? I think this a bit unique in the Singapore content, which, like I always say, there are two networks. There is medium and low pressure for the manufactured gas. In this way, it's kind of ring fenced. I mean, the natural wouldn't go into. Then, of course, you got the natural gas circuit start growing. besides going to the power station, they start to go to some industry, Jurong side, Tuas side, Sembcorp, and of course in the Jurong Islands a lot more. Naturally, you'll find the natural gas is always about volume. So when they increase, they will be quite lumpy. In city gas, traditionally the market is domestic and commercial. So very much may have to grow with, we call the economy and the population growth. We used to, in the old days, we say if the government put out 30,000 new HDB flat, we say, wow, that's our, at least half of our customer, right? If not all. A little bit predictable, but will this type of scenario continue to play out in the long run? And then the view, I think, if we take a higher plan, then we'll see what the government will see. If the government see that the cheaper fuels should go end up with the customer, and the customer should have a choice. That means the customer should have a choice of biogas, natural gas, town gas. Then it will be interesting to see whether this conversion issue, how that will be tackled, right? But personally, I think conversion, I mean, city gas we invested for years, right? And my view is if they have to go to conversion, definitely they look at the commercial decision, all right? I think probably at this juncture, if my memory serves me correctly, you probably end up a question: do you put in more gas making plant, or you want to say let's look at put more gas making, then we continue to do the town gas, or you may want to really take a good look at the conversion. That is something probably a key decision. I'm not sure this will come now, 3 years, 5 years, I don't know, but I got a feeling it's something you will have to look at. So I think that is the first challenge to have. Really is to grow with the conversion. To grow with what you're doing now, gas making. I think that's something. I'm not sure what the market people will say.